boners of Subternia. This is internet personality Vangelis, and there's a new Masters of the Universe line in town. Masterverse is tapping into that 6 to 7 inch-ish collector figure market. That's the hot business for many nostalgic and Fortnite properties these days. And Scareglow is the figure I wanted to pick up on site, partly because I like Scareglows, and partly because I never had a chance at that Fancy Pants Scareglow in the Fancy Pants package with all the Fancy Pants glow-in-the-dark paint. But what is bitterness if not the soil in which to plant the seed of creativity? Especially when that seed is born of bones! With a muscly man base buck that I assume one will see many times in future in this line, Scareglow is rendered primarily in a smoky, dark, translucent plastic that, ideally, will not be a problem as time goes on, given how slightly flexible it is in its first year of life. The bone deco is done in a greenish, bone-ish that evokes glowing in the dark without actually glowing in the dark. And he also has some currently unique costume bits whose skirt and cowl parts ride a fine line between rigid and pliable. The cape doesn't have to do that, as it is the soft goods, slightly thick ones even, with different surface textures on the front and back. That probably sounds really weird to anyone who actually works in textiles. Scareglow's head sculpt is magnificently malevolent, with perfect paint apps that bring out all the recesses and evil optics, and it can glow in the dark. I'm terrible at filming that, but here's the old college try. I might have up-bloomed and then layered on another copy. I actually don't know. We'll find out, I guess, by the time you're watching this. Scareglow's accessory loadout includes 2 unique left hands, 2 unique right hands that do not mirror the left ones, and a big old halberd. Swapping the hands is currently neither difficult nor cringe-inducing, though I wish the pegs were a bit meatier. One pair of hands are both able to flexibly grip a shaft, with the right one involving a slightly extended index finger, while his other 2 hands are a right fist and a left open hand. Asymmetrical hand sets always leave me a bit underwhelmed, but at least these 4 all feel both solid on their own and able to match with their paired options to a decent degree. This is my first time messing with one of these Masterverse type bodies, not my only time. And the head is on a ball socket joint, and in the case of Scareglow, boy howdy, there is range on this thing. There's a ball that the head's connected to, and I believe that the ball then barbells down into the chest. So there's lots of stuff here, which was a nice start to this whole thing. That continues into the mid-torso ball joint, which I think has a pretty decent range in multiple axes. Makes me happy. The paint apps even kinda look fine, although obviously it looks the best when it's at its most puffed, and then it starts to get a bit funny looking. There's also a cut waist, which does not get interfered with at all by the costume piece. The shoulders are on big 6-inch American figure style, we'll call it. Universal kind of joints that have a little bit of a click in there. Like it's not like a hard ratchet. It's just like a glidey, hey, you're done sort of tactile feedback. Bicep swivel with the big puffy sculpt doesn't get impeded much. There's a double jointed elbow that is a little bit gummy. I think that's just because of the non-clear material that the main part of the hinge is made out of compared to the slightly translucent plastic seen throughout Scareglow. The wrists, since they connect with a peg, they can swivel there, and they've all got this hinge, which is what I like to call the useless for He-Man toys hinge, where it comes in this way, like over here on a grippy hand, you can see it comes in this way when tons of He-Man figures have staffs and swords, and if it bent this way, they could all point their weapons, or maybe even point them to the sky to say, I have the power, kind of thing. I don't understand why this is always a thing with He-Man. The hips work a lot like the shoulders. Scareglow's skirt has a big cut up the side, so it doesn't impede this as much as one might think, given that this isn't like super floppy PVC. He's able to kick outwards alright. Like, I wouldn't leave him posed with this thing deformed, because it could probably end up looking a bit funky if you leave it like that for a few weeks. But that all works. There's a cut thigh swivel at the top there. There's a double hinged, very stiff out of the package knee. Works a lot like the elbow. Is built out of the same combination of materials as the elbow. Functions decently enough. Again, I wouldn't leave him like this, because there's no way to bend that knee that much without messing up all of his skirt stuff. So you'd want to do that for a photo shoot, not for a full-on display. He-Mans like to have their boot cuts They also like to have their hinged ankles, and the hinged ankle pin going into the foot as a sort of ankle tilt. That's a thing they also like. On mine, this boot piece and that boot piece, not the feet, just the boot and the boot, I think were swapped, because I swapped them using the Boil and Pop, and right now he has this really nice solid stance here, because these joint hinge things down here are cut at an angle, and when they're reversed, he kind of has trouble standing normally. So if yours is feeling kind of funny, mine are going like that and like that, as opposed to the other way around. Anyway, look at the images. If it's a problem on yours as far as having him stand normally, then that might be a thing, and it's very easy to fix using the aforementioned Boil and Pop. If you don't notice it, and it was just mine who was kind of weird, then hey, I won the lottery. But the articulation on Scareglow's, it's emotive, it functions amidst all of his various costume pieces. Oh, and by the way, speaking of costume pieces, this cape, because it's just around his neck stump, I've found that because it's made of this really nice kind of thick material, it holds a pose kind of decently for cloth, and if you twist it around, like spin it around on that neck stump, the huge collar piece over top sort of holds it in place when you want to do stuff like have him, dramatically sweep his arm with his cape. I think it looks pretty good. It's a nicely cut cape. I'd call it a point of articulation. Scareglow I'd call one big articulated fella who doesn't really disappoint. Nice body. Nice first impression with these Revelations things. On the whole, I'm happy to have picked this dude up. I'll always buy a Scareglow, but thankfully Masterverse seems to also be a solid line at its absolute basics. Good sculpting, decent paint, and solid articulation make me feel safe to dip in and out of it as I feel the urge. The figure scale is kinda tall and likely to make life difficult for those of you who crave actual scientific 1/12 scaling, or even like a vague decimal interpretation of it, but at least if he is tall, Scareglow's also a he-man, so it thematically kinda works. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelis, and there was one other thing in Masterverse that's caught my eye so far, and it isn't even a Skeletor, just a mixture of soft goods and religion, as she the good Lord Mother intended.